認する。旅団員パクノダ本人だな。もちろん。
本当よ。
That's yeah, confirmation.
これからお前たち二
A
人に
choice
それぞれ2つの条件を出す。
within a small
それを厳守すれ
room.
ばリーダーは解放する。
Oh, the judgment chain. It is going to play a
気
part.
づけパクノだ。こいつは俺を殺して恨みを晴らすように仲間の命を取る。それが鎖野郎の弱点。
That's interesting, isn't it? It's all a matter of perspective, though.
まずはリーダーへの条件一つ。今後
Whoa.
念能力の使用を一切禁じる。二つ。
That'll cripple him. Ooh.
本当にこれでいいのか。奴らの頭さえ潰せば雲は瓦解する。そう思っていた。しかし
俺に人質としての価値などない。
Ah,
彼が言っているのは全て本当。
頭を取っても雲は動く。
he has no idea about the internal
リーダー
conflict
が
that's
絶
taking
対なので
place.
はない。場合によっては頭さえ切り離す集団、それが幻影旅団。ここでリーダーの動きを
On paper
封じた
at
ところで
least.
奴らを封じることはできない。
Hypotheticals are hypotheticals, though.
他に手はあるか。この緊縛にも似た現状を解決する奇跡のような手がない。
Oof.
見つからない。
Oh,
そう、
the voice
これでい
acting,
いん
though.
だ。
Oh,
二人を取り戻す。それが最優先。
right, right.
もう
Oh,
仲間を失うのは絶対に嫌だ。今後旅団員との一切の接触を断つこと。こ
yeah.
の二つが条件。そしてそれを守らせるため、この律する小指の鎖、ジャッジメントチェーンを
Okay,
リーダーに
okay.
刺す。OK よ。
No hesitation. He understands. That's insane. He can't use Nen.
依存がなければお前にも鎖を刺す。
She'll agree.
OK よ。
Yeah, immediately. Wow. Now, is Kurapika going to pick up on this? This should be interesting if Kurapika is going to pick up on how agreeable she is.
あなたは頭の隅で矛盾を感じている。
Okay.
パクノダがなぜ一人で来たのか、そのことに旅団が本当に非常なだけの組織な
The
ら
fact that she came
こ
alone,
の
that
人
should
質
tell
交
you so
換自体
much.
成立しないはず。彼らは鉄の掟を作り、団長はそれを遵守しようとしている。少なくとも彼女は違う。
Oh, I love this input from
憎
Melody.
しみを絞り出すようにしながら見据えているその女性は今あなたと同じ理由でそこに立っているのよ。ただ仲間を、団長を救い
To
たい
free her
一心
friend,
で。
companion, her boss.
あなたはそれに気づいているのでしょう。
Ooh,
どこに行くかも言うな。
that'll be a tough task.
交渉成立ね。
Look at that. Just like that.
なぜ何も聞かない。不安じゃないのか。
Right. So he
理不尽な
noticed.
交渉だと思わないか。私が本当にリーダーを返すと思うか。ええ。あなたに騙す気があるなら、わざわざそんなこと聞かないでしょ。
Wow. There's lots to unpack
揉め
there.
ると思ってるのか。そんな条件をよ。
Yeah, this is the tough task.
どうしても
どうしてもだ。
Oh boy.
言
Oh
わな
boy.
いなら行かせるわけにはいかね
絶対に場所は言わないし、二人を連れて戻るのは
Yeah.
私だけよ。
It's game time now.
え。じゃ
The judgment chain is in.
どっちの話だよ、こら。ああ。
生きなよパクノダ。ここは私たちが止める。
Civil war.
なめてるか。
お前ら頭どうかしちまったのか。
おそらく私たち着く前に全員鎖野郎にやられてるの。こいつら操作されてるよ。私が
They
博士。
can't even fathom the
本当にわから
idea.
ないの。パクノダがなぜお前たちに何も話さず戻ろうとしてい
I
る
was
の
kind
か。
of about to say something similar.
マチがなぜお前たちを止めようとしているのか。仲間を取り戻したいって気持ちがそ
ん
んなに理解できないのか。
黙ってろガキが。
たとえ相手が憎い敵だって感情に焼かれて容赦なしで殺したりはしない。もしもお前たちと約束を交わしたのなら
He'll keep it.
それを一方的に破ることも絶対しない。それは直接会ったパクノダには分かったはずだ。
Oh, she knows.
条件通りにすれば団長は必ず戻ってくる。
Hisoka?
いい加減にしろよ、てめえ。
もうやめろ。バク
Frankly.
ノダを生かしてやれ。
おめえまで何言い出すんだよ。
Go on.
今俺たちにとって最悪のケースってのは何だ。
団長
If the
が
fortunes
すで
come
に死んで
true?
てパクノダたちが操作されている。鎖野郎の所在は結局知れず、この二人にもまんまと逃げられるかな。
Nobunaga?
それが間違ってんだよ。最悪なのは俺たち全員がやられて雲が死ぬことだ。理由はどうであれ、お前らどっちも団長に寄りすぎだぞ。その結果旅団が致命的に崩壊してみろ。それが団長に対する一番
Wow,
の裏切りだろう
okay.
が。
Look at this.
このまま揉めてたらそうなりかねねえぞ。頭冷やせ。
I like it,
いいじゃねえか、
Franklin.
好きにさせて。もし団長が戻ってこなかったら、その時は操作されてるやつ全員ぶっ殺して雲再生だ。簡単なことだろうが。
私は操られてないし、簡単にやられもしないけど。
You don't want to lose half the limbs because they fight each other, kill each other, right? You don't want that.
もしも
人質の二人に変わる。壊すなよ。大丈夫か？奴らはいるか？うん、全員いるよ。
Including Hisoka. He's still there.
追わなくていいのか。これでもう鎖野郎が俺たちの動向を調べる術はなくなったぜ。
Oh, they're talking.
もしこれで団長が戻ってこなかったらてめえもぶっ殺すからな。
Okay, how's Illumi going to come into this?
あっちから人が来る。
No.
あれそうか。
Yeah.
怪我してきたのか？
安心しなよ。
Holy
影武
shit.
者を置いてきているから。
It's Illumi.
早くしてよね。針なしで顔変えると4、5時間で元に戻っちゃうか
That's still kind of impressive. He's got the
僕もこい
shakes.
つに乗せてくれ。断ったらこの場でゴンとキルアを殺し
No. He's bluffing.
なんて
Yeah.
そんなもったいないことし
No chance. No chance he kills Gon.
僕の
Killua,
ターゲットは団長のみ。団長と戦いたい。
but he doesn't know that Crollo has a condition on him now. No Nen. Master of disguise indeed, eh, Illumi? How did he get in though? How'd they make the switch?
交換開始だ。
Oh.
よりどころとしていたものを奪われた苦しみ、存分に味わう。
I mean, the troop, the spider is his home after all. And, oh.
ずーっと待ってたよ、この時を。やろ
Oh no, Hisoka, you have no clue.
う。もうこんなもの必要
Oh,
ない。
yeah. So he should be able to,
これでもう仲間割れじゃないから
right, he should be able to talk to
や
Hisoka.
れるだろう。
Hisoka should note that the Nen isn't present.
なるほど。
Aura.
団員じゃないなら話せるなというより、戦うに値しないと
Yeah,
言っておくか。
there's no Nen.
俺は奴にジャッジメントチェーンなる鎖を信
Oh, the
さ
irony.
れてもう念能力も全く使えないんだ。
That's interesting.
変身の得意な友達がいてね。安心しなよ。少なくともクロロが僕に殺されることはなくなった。
I mean,
壊れたおもちゃに興味はないんでね。
broken toys. I mean, down the line, maybe somehow.
実は僕の本当の占いでは
Six pages remain.
火曜日のはずで、
Right?
しかも僕が対談するときにはもう団員は半分になってるはずだったんだ。運命は少しずつずれてきている。
Oh. Oh, kitty.
にゃ、
Oh, that's Pakunoda. That was Pakunoda. I love that.
ここには来られない。
Oh, she's got the gun out.
ざけろよ。きっちり説明しろ。返答次第じゃ。
大丈
Oh no, she's gonna do
夫。
it.
その代わ
Because if she doesn't,
り、一度に撃てる弾は6発。ちょうど結成時のメンバー分。
right, Uwo's gone. Oh,
信じて受け止めてくれる。
yeah, they have to trust her that she's not being manipulated at this moment, controlled. And,
バク、
yeah, she picked up on it.
お前やっぱり奴に操
This
作さ
guy,
れ
he's
て
obviously thinking about that.
信じろ。あれはパクだ。
Because if she doesn't do this, they'll have no idea, right? And they'll rip them apart.
私の思い、
Feelings as well.
すべて込める。
Wow.
お願い私で終わりに
Wow. Wow. And now you know.
死んでる。どういうこと？
俺が説明する。すべて分かった。
Yeah. Yeah. She just saved the spider. Her friends.
ク
Huh?
ラピカの熱このまま下がらないといいのにね。
Okay. Okay.
そうだなっておい今すごいこと言っただろ
Yeah, did he
ク
just...
ラピカはもう旅団と戦っちゃダメな気がするんだ。
Go on, go on.
むしろ俺は報復のために生まれた能力だと思うけどね
そっか。でも最初はそうだったとしても
Right. And he
今のク
changed.
ラピカはもう
He changed.
私はいい仲間を持った本当だろうなグリードアイランドに関する
Oh, it's just gonna pivot to Greed Island.
作戦頼みなんだぞ
Whoa, looking sharp. And Zep Isle as well. Oh. Of course, Phaeton. He had an interest, right?
へい、釣れねえな。
That was
逃げ
cold.
ることねえだろ。
逃げるっつの
安心するね。別にお前たち
Yeah,
のつもりな
I
い。
think they're
今
separately,
から
right?
鎖野郎をやるわけにもいかなくなったしな。
え、どういうこと？
団長に念の鎖刺したんだろ。じゃあ殺せるわけねえじゃねえか。
なんで？逆じゃないの？
こういう時便利だよな素直に聞けるこいつ
Sure
の
is.
性格
念ってのは死ねば消えるとは限らねえんだよ。深い恨みや未練を持ったまま死ぬと、その念は
Whoa,
強く
residual men.
残された念は憎悪や執着の対象へおのずと向かう。
Kind of like a
そうなると
curse.
念能力を
A
使う
haunting.
団長はその邪念をもろに受けて心身をやられてしまう恐れがある。それほど死者の念は強い
Residual men.
だから鎖野郎をやるわけには喋りすぎだっつんだろ。分かってるよ。これ以上言わねえよ。念能力者の中には他人がかけた念を除去できる者がいる。
Ooh, so they can. I mean, it's Krollo, of course, you know, at some point. Head east.
今日は純粋に競売を楽しみに。
Yeah, Phaeton wants a copy, doesn't
あ
he?
の連中はホームに戻る気だし
パクノダさんは？
Hmm.
な。あいつは死んだよ。
It's interesting that they're giving us their perspective specifically. Phaeton and Finks, the two that were the
あんたた
most.
ちなぜ逃げないの
逃げるって？
Oh, is this a conversation from
逃
earlier?
げられるはずでしょそしたらこっちの
It's first person too.
鎖野郎が望む
Right, she did that.
団長を殺せるのなんでそうしないのあいつの仲間
Because they care, man. They care.
仲間だからだよ。仲間だから本当はクラピカに人殺しなんてしてほしくない。
だから交換で済むならそれが一番いいんだ早く行こうぜ
Oh, I love this. I love this. The choice to have Finks.
パクはお前らに感謝してたぜ。
Maybe Finks also wanted to thank them.
次回物語は
Oh,
グリードアイラン
look
ド
at those expressions.
動き出す。
Yeah. Yeah. Those expressions on their faces, yeah. That memory bomb did a number on them, right? You know, after Hisoka told Pakunora, you know, that half the members are supposed to die based on his actual fortune, you know, she had that look on her face. She knew she had to do something. Her only option at that point to save the spider and, you know, hopefully stop this once and for all, it was to shoot them up, right? Give up her life, but also explain everything. But, you know, the distinction I really like there is that she said my feelings as well, right? So they can understand how she felt in those moments.
今日ご紹介するのはクロロ。旅団の団長。
Save the best for last.
能力者。他人の念能力を盗み自分のものにするスキルハンター。使うのは条件が必要なんだよね。
東か
East, yeah, head east. Find new allies. Okay, so that is officially the conclusion to the Yorknew City arc, right? As confirmed by the narrator, right? It's looking to pivot almost immediately into the Greed Island arc. Now, you know, honestly speaking, I didn't think this episode is actually going to be the actual conclusion. I just kind of felt that, okay, it's in that phase now, and then maybe, you know, there might be one more episode after this, right? But you know, that being said, I do feel that it actually wraps up in quite, I don't know, in quite a satisfying manner, right? But you know, the term satisfying is an interesting one to use as well, right? Because yeah, as a whole, you know, there isn't really a satisfying, I don't know, conclusion for some of the characters that are part of this. As of this point, you know, it kind of really truly feels like a mutually unsatisfying conclusion or resolution for, you know, some of the parties that are a part of this, right? Be it the Phantom Troop, be it Kurapika, right? And his motives and all of that. But the fact that it is mutually unsatisfying, perhaps, feels like one of the most realistic approaches it could have taken, right? It is really quite a realistic ending, in my opinion, as of this point. I mean, there's much to get into. There's much to dissect. I've got my cup of coffee. I'm ready, man. I'm ready to get into it. Because, you know, essentially, this is the conclusion to the best arc of the anime so far, right? This is the peak. This is, you know, there's no doubt about it in my mind. This is the peak of Hunter x Hunter up until this point. And, you know, it's, I mean, it is some peak. You know, this is just, it's, you know, it's one of the best arcs I've experienced in anime altogether, right? So the bar has been set really quite high at this point. And, you know, the thing I really like here is that each arc has taken a step up until this point, right? You've got the Hunter exam arc. You've also got mini arcs in there. You know, you've got a mini arc like the Zoldyck arc, you know, Rescue Killua arc. So, you know, can you really compare that arc to, you know, really extensive arcs such as Hunter exam arc, such as Yorknew, such as Heaven's Arena, right? So yeah, you know, that is a bit of an outlier. If I am comparing those arcs, then, you know, I firmly believe that this is the peak of Hunter x Hunter up until this point. You know, Yorknew City is just phenomenal arc. And, you know, especially because it's really quite up my alley, you know, the tone of it, the subject matter of it. I mean, there's quite a bit that it covers, you know, I think it masterfully actually tackles and juggles this incredible and massive ensemble cast of characters, right? Just the Phantom Troop itself has such a unique buildup of characters, and there's quite a few. There's quite a bit of characters there, right? Then, of course, you've got characters like Melody that are introduced. You know, one of the best characters that has been introduced during this arc. You've got Kurapika and all the bodyguards side of things, right? Neon and Light Nostrada, right? The mafia community, the auction aspect of it. Then you've got Gon and Killua and Leorio, right? You've got the reunion aspect of it. There's so much. There's just so much going on here, and I think I think the execution of this arc is beautiful. It's been handled really quite effectively, and in really quite a satisfying manner. Hell, you even have the Zoldycks that make an appearance, right? Illumi, Zeno, Silva. The only one that didn't show up is Miluki, right? Who's been traveling for quite a bit of time, unless, you know, he's already in Yorknew City and he's just kind of keeping a low profile. Now, you know, essentially this next part, the Greed Island part, is the perfect time. You know, it is the perfect time to have Miluki finally make that appearance. You know, for me, it's something I've been really quite, I don't know, excited about. You know, I've been thinking about it, you know, even though I don't mention it all the time, you know, it's been in the back of my mind. I mean, it's really quite a comprehensive story arc, right? And, you know, there's a lot of buildup, you know. The main aspect of it, one of the major aspects of the buildup is the Phantom Troop. And as you know, I was really, really quite excited about it. And I got the Phantom Troop. Oh, I got the Phantom Troop. You know, you go back to that iconic moment, the gathering of heroes. Since that day, since that episode, it's been nothing but really engaging character dynamics, completely living up to all the hype in my mind. That is, you know, perhaps one of the standouts of this arc, for me, at least. You know, that might actually be the standout of this arc. You know, the introduction proper of the Phantom Troop. I mean, it's an arc that is full of just high octane, thrilling moments, but then also, you know, really personal or intimate, emotional moments as well. You know, really somber moments. really dark moments, really iconic and incredible moments, all-timer moments in anime and beyond even, right? Of course, Requiem comes to mind almost immediately. Moments like the Scarlet Moon, right? Kurapika and Uvogen, and the absolute rush of emotions that Kurapika goes through in that episode, right? That is, oh my god, that episode, it's still so vivid in my mind. It's a story arc that has so much personality, so much thought put into it, right? It's a story arc that has a handful of philosophies at play. There are philosophical debates or philosophical differences to kind of dissect, to experience. Again, through a handful of different characters. After giving us our Nen education in a controlled setting in Heaven's Arena, right? It then applies that to this arc, right? It kind of takes the next step up. So, from that perspective, Nen is really quite the crucial component of this story, of this anime, right? It really, really expands on it in such a satisfying and intriguing manner, in a manner that is really quite tantalizing, right? Throughout this arc. It's really, really, I cannot say enough about this arc. One of the highest compliments I can give this arc at this moment is that right now I have this urge to go right back to the beginning of the arc and to experience it all over again. Listen, in my opinion, the bar has been set so high that I don't think you'll be able to continue that trajectory of, okay, every single arc has been getting better and better. Because as of this point, my understanding, my reading of this arc that is about to, come into play now, the Greed Island arc, is that it might be a bit more lighthearted, right? That it might be taking a bit of a break from the really, distinct tone of the Yorknew City arc. Now, listen, I'm not against lighthearted. I'm not against, a lot of fun moments. So yeah, it is about to be a focus on Gon and Killua once again. Understandably so. Given the setup of Greed Island. And listen, before I go any further, I'm really, really quite excited about that. All the setup there back in Gon's home before this arc takes place. Kind of, again, in the grand scheme of things, trying to look for his father. It's just that I get the feeling at this point that maybe this arc or the tone of it that I've kind of perceived so far, right, gathered so far from everything I've kind of, picked up, it just kind of feels like it might not be the same level as Yorknew City, right? And everything that's kind of been, a part of this arc that's happened in this arc and how it's happened. Right? The thing is, here in the 11th hour, a character has become one of my favorites, right? Over the span of the past few episodes. And of course, I am speaking of Pakunoda, because of course, over the span of the past few episodes, there's been this sunburst of insight on Pakunoda, right? And then of course, there's this incredible sacrifice that she ends up making by the end of this episode. And of course, I'm just kind of mentioning that in passing. There's going to be a deep dive into all of this, right? This is about to be quite a long one. I needed a cup of coffee for sure. So yeah, before I go any further, I just kind of want to put it out there. I'm not dreading the next arc or anything. I'm really quite into it. I mean, I don't think I need to really even mention that anymore. It's been pretty clear at this point that I'm really, really into this anime, into the show. So please don't take it as that. It's not me dreading this next arc, but it is me kind of, establishing my expectations. And also, that being said, even though I did say, it appears to be, or it feels like it is going to be more of a lighthearted story arc, that doesn't mean that, it's about to be all fun and games either, right? I'm sure, much like the Hunter exam arc, it's going to have its moments. It's going to have its dark moments. And actually, yeah, as I am thinking about it, maybe it might have a similar tone to the Hunter exam arc as a whole. But yeah, in terms of other people that might be a part of it, or other characters rather, that might be a part of it, I'm certainly hoping Leorio plays a part, right? Because, I just got him back. So, it'd be a bit of a bummer if he's sidelined again to kind of, show up down the line, after the end of this arc. I think one person that might not be, or there's a good chance is not going to be a part of this arc is Kurapika, who is understandably so, kind of having a bit of a rest. So yeah, I can totally see Kurapika sitting this one out. Ultimately, you have to ask the question, is this really truly the conclusion to Kurapika's arc, right? Is this it? Is this it in terms of the conflict between Kurapika and the Phantom Troop? In terms of the Phantom Troop, there's strong hints here, or there's a strong possibility here that indeed, at least Finks and Phaeton are going to be a part of Greed Island or that arc. Because, they set up some time ago, of course, that, Phaeton has shown an interest in that game back in Gathering of Heroes, and then, of course, the Hunterpedia, and, of course, them being here, and then, confirming to both Gon and Killua and us, the audience, as well. Though, I felt that, they are here for other reasons. I didn't feel that, they're still here to hunt down Gon and Killua. Though, them confirming it is certainly quite a good thing, or quite a helpful thing. And one of the reasons I believed almost immediately that they are not here for Gon and Killua, or to harm them, to kill them, or anything, to kidnap them, is because, that incredible moment, that incredible ending to Pakunoda's arc or her life, there's this somber tone, this understanding, especially Finks. Finks specifically voices it, now I understand everything. I'll explain everything. There in those moments, I think it's made really quite clear that, okay, they're ready. People like Finks and Phaeton, the ones that are really quite, militant about keeping up the ideology of the spider. And, they are really quite, they're hard asses of the group, or at least two of them. These are tough guys, Phaeton and Finks, right? Really distinct personalities and approach to certain things. But there it became really quite clear. Okay, yeah, there's about to be a shift of perspective. There is a deeper understanding for, one of their fallen comrades, and everything she does in those moments, in these final moments, everything she's gone through to get to that moment, to that decision that she made for the spider, on behalf of the spider, right? The selfless act, so the spider does not fall apart, does not tear itself apart, right? And the fortunes don't come true, right? Because, a lot of the fortunes, sure, you can look at it metaphorically as well. Of course, you can look at it from that lens as well. But, a lot of the fortunes really felt really quite literal, didn't they? And of course, the moment Pakunoda hears about Hisoka's actual fortune, the true fortune, she understands, okay, my job here is not done yet, right? And again, like I mentioned, she makes that selfless decision to make sure, right, in essentially the only effective manner, right, the memory bomb, to explain everything. So they know the reasoning behind all of this. So they know the reason behind Chrollo not being here, because he's not able to be here anymore, right? At least for the time being. Listen, I'm sure Chrollo is going to make his grand re-entry into the anime at some point, right? I don't expect it anytime soon, but, I'm certainly expecting him to be a part of this down the line. They've certainly alluded to it at the end of the episode as well. Finks is talking about how there are other Nen users who can remove Nen, right? Who can remove people's Nen. So of course, at some point, I'm sure they'll be able to remove, or Chrollo is going to be able to remove Kurapika's judgment chain, right? There's Nen users for everything, right? So they'll come across that specific Nen user that they need, that they require in this really tricky situation. And, they know that Chrollo is heading east, right? Because one of the things that the Phantom Troop did that is really, really quite effective is that, they shared all of the fortunes. They know of all of the fortunes, right? That really worked in their favor for the majority of it, at least. So based on his fortune, they know he'll be fine, right? And he's heading east. So that's all they need really at this point. But of course, a memory bomb really served its purpose, right? It was able to give them everything, including her feelings on the matter. And I love the touch at the end there, having Finks kind of thinking back to that moment from the first person perspective of Pakunoda, right? It's a great scene. It really is a fantastic scene, right? And, in addition to Pakunora actually, wanting to thank Gon and Killua, I think in that moment, thinks truly, after having an understanding for everything that's happened, he also wanted to thank Gon and Killua, right? In addition to thanking them on Pakunora's behalf. But actually, going back to my point about really needing Leorio to continue on into the next arc, right? Instead of getting benched or, sidetracked again, or sidelined rather. Yeah, I think realistically speaking, or I do have to kind of look at it realistically, they've set up that it's not an easy thing to be a part of, Greed Island, the game. So I don't know how realistic it is to have Leorio kind of come along or be a part of this. So yeah, maybe, I have to reel in my expectations about this and kind of accept that, there's a good chance that maybe Leorio is not going to be part of it. They could do something like back and forth. Though, I was about to say maybe they could focus on, Melody, Kurapika, and Leorio, and then, they can kind of cut back or transition back to Greed Island, that aspect of it, Gon and Killua. I don't know how realistic that approach is, given that, I've already seen that, once they get into an arc, they kind of, they really focus on the people that are part of that arc, right? And they kind of sidetrack or sideline a few of the characters, but they come in at some point, right? That's always a given. But also, staying on that point about how things have been established in this anime so far, right? And how they establish mechanics or how they set up storylines or story arcs ahead of time, right? Or at certain points, and then kind of come back to it later. Yeah, you see that there's quite a bit of setup at the end of this arc as well, be it Crollo heading east, and, that whole aspect of, possibly and most likely getting the Nen removed, right? Judgment Chain, specifically, be it the setup for the mechanics of residual Nen. How about that, eh? That got me excited. That got me really excited. Yeah, and the thing is, it really kind of reiterates how intrinsic, how personal, how individual, how unique Nen is to each individual, how intrinsically linked it is to the life force of someone, right? But I love how the introduction of the mechanics of this, the residual Nen element of it, Nen after death, serves, multiple purposes right at the end of this arc, right? First of all, you have the Phantom Troop, or, Finks and Phaeton specifically in this case, being careful of that, right? That, they cannot go after Kurapika because this is one of the reasons, right? They don't want to rock the boat. But also, I'm sure that, the setup of these mechanics, it's going to come into play in a grand manner at some point in this anime. Be it the next arc or the arc after that, it's going to come into play. It is. That's just the nature of this anime, in how they set things up, right? How they foreshadow things, how they allude to certain things. I mean, there's a great example of it in this episode as well. And, I speculated about Illumi's role in this, kind of helping out Hisoka. And yeah, ultimately him being a master of disguise comes in really quite handy, right? Comes in quite clutch. So yeah, all that time ago, it was set up. Now, I'm not saying it was set up just for this moment. I'm sure it's going to come into play down the line as well. But, for this moment, it certainly came into play, didn't it? And, I'm kind of thinking about how exactly they made the switch. Did the other element of that, him kind of being able to dig underground, actually come into play as well, in terms of them actually switching places? I'm trying to think about how exactly they pulled this off in terms of, making that switch, right? And getting past the other members that are there. But yeah, it's impressive nonetheless, isn't it? That Illumi's just sitting there the whole time. And the thing is, he claims that, he can only really do this for 4 or 5 hours without, the needles, his iconic needles. But to me, that feels really quite effective, or sorry, not effective. To me, that feels really quite impressive. Anyways, even for 4 or 5 hours to be able to do that, though he was kind of beginning to get the shakes, But yeah, Hisoka made it happen. He's out there, and of course, that part of his fortune came true, right? He got to face the man who has St. Peter's cross. But of course, there's a catch. There's quite a significant catch, actually. Because there's quite a significant condition at play here, right? Crollo Chrono Trigger. I'm sure I'm not the first one who's thought of that, but anytime I try to say his name, I always think of Chrono Trigger. So I'm like, all right, let me just say this one time. But yeah, back to the point. Yeah, it's I mean, it's a game changer, isn't it? Actually, not just the Nen restriction, the other restriction as well, that he cannot contact the Phantom Troop. I think these two are actually going to end up playing quite a, I don't know, major role in the character progression or character arc of Chrollo. Now, I do expect this, I suppose this aspect of it, or this part of his character progression, to be off screen for the most part. I don't think the anime is about to have a focus on Chrollo and his journey from this point on, inner journey as well. I mean, of course, I would love that, but I just don't think it's realistic at all, based on everything I've seen in this anime so far. So yeah, again, more on that later. But the reason I'm kind of speaking of this stipulation and the significant speed bump is because I kind of want to focus on Hisoka finding out about this. Now here in this scene, in this case, maybe there's one of the few times I had bit of a, I don't know, it's not really a criticism, but it's not quite how I expected his reaction to play out, right? I was actually hoping for something a bit more focused, or maybe a bit more of a focus on Hisoka's reaction, right? To finding out that, something he's been planning on, something he's been hoping for, anticipating, salivating over for a few years at this point, right? Or a decent amount of time at this point. It's just gone in an instant, just like that, right? He called him a broken toy, right? So, of course, because of the stipulation, he immediately lost interest, for the time being at least. I don't think he's completely given up on it. I certainly hope not, right? Because just like Finks knows about it, and I'm sure, he found out through some of the other members of the Phantom Troop, or maybe he already knew about this. I'm sure Hisoka also, he probably knows that, okay, yeah, there is a possibility that Chrollo can get it removed. So I don't think he's completely given up on it, right? This fight against Chrollo at some point. But for now, yeah, for now, it's a bit of a major disappointment for him. And, for me, I think it would have been a bit more effective if it took that moment a bit more seriously. Listen, I get that it's meant to be a fun moment. And yeah, the initial reaction and, almost kind of like a manga panel in that sense, yeah, sure, I understand it. I get it. I get that it is fun. It is a funny moment, sure. I don't know. I think maybe it's more of like a preference thing because, I think it could have been a great moment to actually give us a rare bit of insight, right, on Hisoka. I just kind of assumed he'd be just so disappointed and, momentarily really quite crushed, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's one choice I didn't really quite like because it's that moment, right? He finds out that Chrollo's Nen is gone. Yeah, sure, they could have done maybe hand-to-hand combat. Maybe, in a state of Zetsu, he could have gone, toe-to-toe, just a bit of, hand-to-hand combat, CQC. But, that's not the point of this. He wanted Chrollo at his best, right? And that includes having the Nen be present, be a part of that fight, that encounter, especially given the fact that his Nen, his abilities are really, really quite unique. So yeah, that scene didn't really quite play out how I was hoping for it to play out or expecting it to play out. But yeah, he immediately just gave up on it. He goes up and he tells Pakunoda about it. But the significant moment that comes out of that scene, him and Pakunoda, is again Pakunoda finding out about his actual fortune, like I mentioned a little bit earlier. And then, she essentially had to decide, okay, yeah, if I don't do this, if I don't make them understand, right? The spider is going to tear itself apart. It is going to lose half its limbs. 6 pages remain. That was the specific line of dialogue or the verse from Hisoka's fortune, right? Oh, also, let's not forget that, now the Phantom Troop knows about Hisoka as well, right? All that information was pretty much handed over through the memory bomb, right? And this is given to the remaining founding members rather, of the Phantom Troop now that Uvogin is gone. Yeah, so they know about Hisoka, is there a possibility of a run-in down the line, maybe not even down the line, maybe soon. I don't know. Because, Hisoka is one of those characters that I expect to be around for the most part, right? He's been one of those constants since the beginning of the anime. So I don't know, is he about to play a part in Greed Island at all? Or is he about to be sidelined for the first time in a long time, right? He even showed up in Heaven's Arena, but that made a lot of sense, of course, for him to be at that specific place as well, again, in relation to Gon's growth, character progression, and all of that as well. But they know about Hisoka. He told Pakunoda quite a bit, right? That he sneaked out. He got Illumi to tag in for him, so they know about Illumi as well. That Illumi and Hisoka are kind of, I don't know, not partners in crime, but on good terms at least. So they know about Hisoka at this point. The rest of the Phantom Troop members, right? So that part of his fortune is certainly about to come true as well, because Hisoka is not about to go join back up, is he? I believe it says something along the lines of the false fourth moon. Maybe that's not it, but something about the false fourth member of the Phantom Troop is going to be ripped away. But again, that being said, I just discussed, Hisoka's motives, after finding out that, okay, at this point, Chrollo is not able to use Nen. So, there is still a unique situation here because both the Phantom Troop and, presented through Finks right at the end there, and Hisoka really kind of want the same thing, don't they? To have the Nen or have Chrollo's Nen be returned, or at least have the restriction removed, have Judgment Chain removed. Of course, for the Phantom Troop, it's a matter of getting, their friend back, their leader back, right? Being able to, stay in contact. And for Hisoka, it's a matter of, okay, if I can get that removed, if I can somehow help in getting that removed, I can fight the guy, right? But again, it's a slippery slope. Again, now that the Phantom Troop knows about Hisoka. But yeah, see, this is one of the many reasons I think or believe that this maybe could have used another episode or at least a segment in the next episode. Hell, it still might happen just because, they've officially claimed that, okay, now Greed Island is up next. Doesn't mean they might not check in once again, maybe for one final time for the time being, at least with, the Phantom Troop members. Okay. Maybe I'll hold my horses. Maybe I'll hold off on this discussion point until I get to the next episode. My initial point was, I kind of want to see a bit of the aftermath. I kind of want to see how, the Phantom Troop members are going to react to some of the other memories that they received through Pakunoda's memory bomb, right? One of them being the confirmation of the betrayal, right? Hisoka's betrayal. But yeah, as far as Hisoka's path in this anime, and, possibly the next story arc and beyond, it's always kind of tethered to Gon and his progression, right? Because he's registered that interest in Gon. So, it almost kind of feels like he'll always be around. He'll always kind of linger, right? He'll be around in the right moments, keeping an eye on Gon and seeing how things are progressing, right? In terms of his growth and his experiences and, his education even, right? As far as Nen goes. And, that's one of the setup moments of this, isn't it? It's been something they've been kind of, alluding to throughout this arc in the last, 5, 6, 7 episodes, both Gon and Killua really needing to or wanting to, progress in terms of Nen, wanting to get stronger, right? And, initially their goal was to go to Kurapika, right? And, kind of pick his brain about Nen and how they can kind of, take the next step. So I don't know if that's still on the cards, if that's still really an immediate possibility, given the fact that the focus is now shifting on Greed Island. So the development of their own unique Hatsu is still one of the most intriguing plot points at this point, right? So let's see if it is going to be a part of the Greed Island arc. All that time ago in Heaven's Arena, I discussed the possibility of them now kind of, developing their own Hatsu, really unique Hatsu. I think the talking point there was they'll need someone else, right? Someone else is going to have to kind of take them in and kind of develop that, help them develop that. And they certainly set up the possibility of that being Kurapika in this arc. But now, it seems like that might not be the case. It might have to be someone else. And if that is the case, I'm sure whoever ends up being this person, or it could be multiple people actually, who knows? But yeah, going back to finish up my point about Hisoka, yeah, of course, I'm really quite excited to see more of him, right? He's one of the best characters of this anime, of this story, certainly one of my favorites. Okay, let's shift the focus now to someone I spoke of a little bit earlier, Pakunora, right? Like I said, at the 11th hour of the Yorknew City arc, she ends up becoming one of the best parts of it, right? One of the highlights of this arc, right in its final moments, in its final leg. One of the great characters of this anime so far. Certainly for me at least. At the end of the day, she's fiercely loyal, right? She's kind to her friends, selfless, right? She cares, right? I mean, she truly cares. She cared so much for them that she felt that, okay, maybe I can truly finally put an end to this. Those are her dying moments, right? Her dying hope. Let it all end. Let it all end with me, right? And, ultimately, I think it did. It did, and it does, right? Because you see that Finks is really quite humbled by all of it. All of it. I mean, yeah, he certainly understood. I mean, the really interesting thing here is that, Finks might be the one that was most affected after getting these memories, right? And that's something special, isn't it? He truly mellowed out. Even Phaeton, both of them really mellowed out, right? Phaeton is still a little bit stoic, but, Finks is able to kind of, show a bit of his actual character, perhaps, or not actual character, because I do feel like, that hard exterior is a part of his character. I don't think he's completely putting on an act or anything, that's just a part of him. But I think, there is more to Finks. There is, and I think he showed us in these moments, that he is able to mellow out, that he does have a sympathetic side, or, a more of an empathetic side, rather. But yeah, going back to Pakunora, I mean, I've got to say, this is really quite the interesting take on a femme fatale, right, by Togashi. Really is. It's a great take, actually. It kind of flips it upside down, doesn't it? Again, up until recently, Pakunora is really quite stoic. You don't really get a chance to, gain any insight or get a read on her. But yeah, like I said, in the final 2 episodes, you really truly get to know Pakunora, right? And there's just some lovely touches here, like her coming across that cat, right? My God, to me, that was, I don't know, that just, it felt right. It felt like, okay, this is Pakunora. This is her. This is her character. This is who she is, right? She's a kind person. She's a caring person, a loving person, right? And, for that reason, see, that reminds me, there is another thing that I think I could have used out of this arc. And that was the backstory. Listen, they've shown me glimpses of it, and much more recently, they actually showed me younger Phantom Troop members, right? Different looks for most of them. Since then, they've collected some scars. Franklin specifically had a lot of scars, a lot of scarring on his face, it looked like, stitches, right? Scarring from stitches. Again, he's got the ear thing going. So he's changed quite a bit, more on Franklin in a bit. Another one that really impressed me. And another one that's really quite competent. But see, that's another thing I really could have used. The Phantom Troop backstory, right? It was a long arc, and I think there was plenty of time maybe to put that in there. But maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe that's a thought process behind this. Maybe I might get it still down the line, But I think for that to happen, it would have to be a focus on the Phantom Troop once again. It can't just be randomly out of the blue. Right. So I don't know, man. I don't know. This just felt like the perfect chance, right? Because it is a major focus on the Phantom Troop. I mean, Yorknew City and Phantom Troop go hand in hand, this arc. I'm always going to associate this arc with the Phantom Troop. So yeah, even though I did get some insight, through flashbacks and, insight on Meteor City, and, because of that, you can infer quite a bit as well. I feel that a proper full-on, backstory of how they met, how they kind of grew up together, the years they spent together, and how this bond developed. I mean, since a lot of them, especially the founding members, of course, are from the same place, grew up in the same place, that bond is, it's a given. It's almost a given, right? I mean, the bonds and the connections are airtight. They are airtight, right? And see, that's one of the things that Kurapika truly struggles with, coming across this aspect of it, this element of it, right? And Melody notices this, that, Kurapika knows that something's amiss, something's off here, right? Just because of the fact that someone showed up by themselves. Pakunora did show up by herself. That in itself told Kurapika, okay, hold on. This is actually happening. This person actually listened to me and they came by themselves, right? And then of course he starts to think about, why exactly she came by herself. And then, he's intelligent. He knows enough in the back of his mind the reason she did end up coming by herself, and is listening to him and is being so agreeable, right? And you see, for that reason, I don't know if he's annoyed, but he is frustrated. He is just uneasy about the whole thing. And, Kurapika struggling with the humanity of the spider, right? Because that kind of turns everything on its head, from Kurapika's perspective, at least. But yeah, going back to my point about the backstory, yeah, let's chalk that up to something I could have used. But now it truly kind of feels like maybe it's too late for that. Maybe, I'm not going to be getting any type of backstory for the foreseeable future, at least. But let me shift the focus once again to Chrollo. I'm not ready to let go just yet. Not just yet. Let me just kind of, explore a few more things, because essentially this is an intermission, if you will. Right? It makes a lot of sense given that they are a troupe and all that, right? So, from that perspective, it's one of those moments, isn't it? So if you look at it from Chrollo's perspective, this kind of does give him a chance for a bit of reflection, right? For self-discovery even, right? Because a few episodes ago, they alluded to or hinted at the idea of him not even truly knowing himself completely just yet. Right? That he is still trying to find himself, understand himself, right? Again, that truly can be a lifelong journey. But this isolation, this journey that he's about to go on, this could be a good chance for a lot of self-discovery. And now it is going to give him a chance and the time to really kind of think about, the Phantom Troupe as a whole, the spider as a whole, the ideology as a whole, right? His belief, his absolute belief in the limbs of the spider upholding that ideology, right? Because there's a fantastic bit of, dramatic irony that Chrollo doesn't realize that indeed the troupe also has the same weakness as Kurapika, right? There's that moment before the cold open. He's hoping and he's imploring Pakunora, right? Of course, it's an internal monologue, but he's hoping essentially that she picks up on this, that, ultimately he's not ready to, continue on this path of vengeance, right? In favor of letting go of his friends. But ultimately, at that point, he has no clue, right? And I love that, as competent as he is, as incredible and impressive as he is, he could not understand, he could not realize Pakunora is standing right in front of him by herself, right? Doing the exact same thing. She's there for the exact same thing. She's there to free her friend, right? I mean, of course, the fact that she does show up by herself, that would have put a bit of a red flag, I suppose, from Chrollo's perspective, right? Because then he knows that, okay, at least they've discussed this and they've come to the conclusion that, okay, they are going to let Pakunora go by herself. He was hoping that all of them come, right? That was his internal monologue in the last episode. Bring everyone. But it didn't play out like that. But you see that even so, he's still hoping, or he still thinks at that point that, okay, she's going to pick up on this. So I love that both Kurapika and Chrollo kind of come to terms with a few new things, right? In the case of Chrollo, these are things that maybe he should have kind of foreseen or picked up on, that ultimately there is a chance that, there's members of the troupe that are going to be a bit more, emotionally attached, that they are going to look at me as a friend that they've known for most of their lives, right? Since Meteor City, they all came up together and all of that, right? Sure, there's a few that are going to maintain that respect for him, but also maintain the Spider, him as a boss. And, you have people like Phaeton and Finks who are open to that, right? More than open to, okay, they have to do it by the book. These are the established rules, the rules of the Spider, right? Do not insult the Spider, right? You see Phaeton kind of have a go at Nobunaga for that in the last episode. But then there's also people that are going to be a bit more, attached, not ready to just let him go that easily. So now he knows for sure, that's the case. Though it's interesting, isn't it? Because, you go back to the Requiem episode. He shed a tear for Uvogin, right? So he's capable of caring for the other members of the troop. So to me, it's like, interesting that he wasn't able to understand or foresee that there could be other members that might feel the same for him. But let's shift the focus now to Kurapika and his struggles and, these new findings about the Phantom Troop. He's really quite, perplexed, frustrated, annoyed maybe by the humanity of the Phantom Troop, of the Spider, right? Because he was not expecting that at all, right? To me, it feels like, I don't even know if it just feels like it. It is the case, essentially, over the years, right? I think I've spoke of this, I've speculated, or, I've discussed this point on many occasions that, he must have visualized this so many times, how exactly he'll, take them down, right? It's clear that he had a really specific image of them, profile of them built up in his mind, right? I think it's safe to assume that he assumed and always just kind of, it wasn't even a matter of, okay, it's possible they could be a little bit different. No. I think it's really clear that in his mind, it's quite clear that these are soulless monsters, right? Ruthless, ferocious killers, demented killers even, right? That have no regard for human life. Anyone who's capable of doing that to my clan, to my family, to my friends, and they even show one of his childhood friends from the looks of it, right? The dark-haired boy. I love, how about that moment, right? That's one of the standout moments of this arc, let alone this episode, that internal monologue of him, and that the visual reference in his mind, I don't want to lose any more friends ever again. And, it's that lovely shot of Gon and Killua, and, it's their smiling faces. That's how he remembers them, right? And that's how he remembers this late friend as well. They're the same in his mind. They're the same now. You see just how uneasy Kurapika is, that she hasn't asked any questions. She's so agreeable, right? Almost immediately on both occasions, right? First accepting the terms for, Crollo, and then of course accepting the terms for herself. Around this time, Melody's internal monologue kind of takes place. Or comes in, and I thought it was just really fantastic to have that insight from Melody. And of course, he had a few questions for Pakunoda as well, right? Don't you think this is unreasonable? Don't you think, I'll possibly deceive you and all of that, right? And she was so sure that nope. The fact that you're asking me these questions means that you have no intentions of, deceiving me at all, right? So at so many of these turns, Kurapika is just being hit with, stuff that he's not expecting at all from the troop, right? The fact that they do appear to have these bonds, that they are capable of developing familial bonds and connections, and that they do care for each other to this extent, right? It's truly throwing Kurapika for a loop, right? And it makes things really quite difficult in his mind as well, because again, like I said, he's got a certain profile built up in his mind, but then to slowly, kind of find out that they do have humanity, that they are capable of all of this, it makes things a bit tricky for him, don't they? Right? See, one of the main reasons for this is that he really truly wanted, a reason. He wanted something. He wanted to learn about them, right? How could they do this? How could someone do this, right? That was one of the major focuses of his fight against Uvogin, right? He asked him so many times, a few different questions. But see, it was one of the reoccurring themes of this as well. At no point do the members of the Phantom Troop let him have the satisfaction. I mean, Pakunora is more of a indirect, approach to this. She's not really trying to agitate him or anything. She's just really being quite agreeable, right? And she's not really posing any questions, not really, talking at all, right? She's just there doing her part and listening. But, Uvogin didn't give him anything, right? Especially once Uvogin understood that this is it. He's finished. He's trapped. He had nothing to say to Kurapika. And you see that it agitated Kurapika. He wanted, I don't know, he wanted something. He wanted to understand how people could do this, right? And then, of course, much more recently, you see that Crollo most definitely does not give him any satisfaction. He ignores him, and Crollo picks up on all of this. It's all by design. He's trying everything to push Kurapika, and he successfully pushes Kurapika's buttons really quite easily, So at no point does he get any satisfaction from the troop, right? Because the troop is not built that way. They're not. But see, the thing is, I mentioned the Uvogin fight. There, it's essentially his first encounter with the spider proper, a limb of the spider, someone from the troop. Right there, I mean, see, the thing is, Uvogin kind of does fit the profile that Kurapika had in his mind. But the thing is, Uvogin is also kind of playing it up, right? He is trying to get a rise out of Kurapika. He is trying to get a reaction out of him, right? Because Uvogin knows now that this is someone that is out for revenge, right? So he's really leaning into it. He's telling Kurapika that, I love killing people that come in for this reason, that chase us down for this reason. He kind of alludes to doing it quite a bit, that he's done it quite a bit. So of course, his encounter with Uvo didn't really give him that much insight, right? For the most part, Uvogin, even if he was kind of hamming it up and playing it up, he kind of fit the profile that Kurapika had in his mind. But now, really quite recently, things are changing really quite rapidly as well, right? Because he's coming to terms with the fact that, okay, it looks like they do have values. They do have a code, right? They do care for each other to an extent that, this person came by herself and is agreeing to everything I have to say. God damn it, she agreed to my judgment chain, right? She agreed to such a significant restriction on their leader, as it's as significant as it gets. And I think it really is ultimately the most fitting punishment, the most fitting revenge, perhaps, that he could have actually gotten at this point. Instead of continuing to kill them, which he got nothing out of anyways. I mean, he was miserable after actually killing Uvogin, right? You see, he was disgusted by the act. He just couldn't understand how anyone could just do this, right? Like I said, that episode, it's an all-timer type episode as well. The emotions of it, right? I'm not even speaking of the fight element of it, right? Even though that is quite impressive as well and a standout, Kurapika is just going through it in that episode against Uvogin. So ultimately, his revenge is more of an emotional one instead of, literally and physically killing as many troop members as he can. Hell, there's even poetic justice in that sense, and I think ultimately it is the more fitting punishment, right? The most appropriate in this really specific case of him and the Phantom Troop and Crollo, the leader of the Phantom Troop, because in the grand scheme of things, Kurapika was truly hurt to lose his friends, to lose his home, to lose his family, right? To lose his clan. That is the exact same thing he does to Crollo. Now you'll truly know the pain of losing your home. And also now that he understands that they do have connections, they are capable of, creating these bonds, familial bonds and all of that, that there is a humanity to them. But, I've got to kind of focus a bit on Gon and Killua, Gon specifically as well. Killua, of course, he's not as bombastic or outspoken as Gon, but, it doesn't mean that he doesn't feel a lot of these things, right? Their approach is just a little bit different. You even see, Killua, point that out. He's like, sometimes it's good to have someone who's open to asking these questions almost immediately, right? Killua's more about internal monologue, really thinking things over once or twice, 3 times even. And Gon is all about, speaking his mind, right? Because that's just in his nature. That is just Gon's curiosity, isn't it? Right. And, I'm speaking of that moment right at the end there, because, Finks is saying, of course, it'd be a risk going after Kurapika and killing him. And, Gon's like, hold on, it could be shouldn't it be the opposite? If you kill him, then, maybe the restrictions could be lifted and all of that. And of course, because of that, it brings in the mechanics of residual nen, nen after death. Right. And, maybe by the end of this, I'll kind of speculate and theorize a bit more on that. But, there's a few standout moments, right? One of them is of Gon getting really quite annoyed and frustrated because of the bickering, the infighting that is going on or taking place at HQ, at Troop HQ, right? Because there's a few of them, mainly Phaeton and Finks, who's the really outspoken one here for that side, who simply cannot fathom even the idea of them simply just wanting to save a friend, right? Their boss. Right. And Gon is just, he's sitting there. He's doing his best to keep to himself at that moment, but he can't take it anymore. Hell, he even lets them know, or Finks at least, that, they have the capacity to break out of these chains and escape anytime they want. I mean, not escape. They can try, but they'd be caught. But the point is, they're sitting there by choice. Right, by design. And, he took offense to the fact that, Finks is suggesting that, this is also, they can get out of the situation and save themselves. Right. But no. But there, the point is they're doing this for their friend. Right. So now he's annoyed that, they can't even think of the possibility that, some of their own friends here, their comrades, fellow troop members might be thinking the same thing. Why is this such a difficult thing for you to even understand or, accept, right? Gon is not having it. And the thing is, some of those members know it's true. They know that this kid is speaking the truth at this moment, right? He's making a lot of sense. Of course, people like Machi and Pakunora know this, but of course, they're not able to really voice it right then and there, right? They can't just be like, yeah, he's right. They can't say that about Gon in that moment. But yeah, later, another significant moment is presented in that really touching flashback, right? That Finks really quite feels as well, doesn't he? Pakunora once again finds out that indeed, they could escape. They could easily escape at this point, but they don't. They don't, because they want their friend to just kind of be out of this situation. They don't want him to go down another tricky situation, another, slippery slope if they are to escape. And then, that escalates everything. No. They just want to de-escalate. They don't want their friend to kill again, right? And continue down that path. And also have someone she cares for, someone the other members care for, return as well, right? So yeah, Gon and Killua, mature little dudes. And you see that in those moments, Pakunora really appreciated them and, what they've done here. And yeah, I just think it's the perfect choice to have Phaeton and Finks kind of deliver that message. I mean, Finks is doing most of the talking. Hell, he even thinks he's talking a bit too much as he, kind of looks at Phaeton. But yeah, I thought it was just perfect. The absolute perfect touch to have these two kind of be there in that moment, right? And Finks specifically voicing it and really thanking them. I thought it's perfect. It really is. But yeah, in terms of some of the other members of the troop, I kind of touched up on this a little bit earlier. Franklin just kind of steps in at just the right moment, right? The situation is about to just get really, really quite unstable. He grabs it by the scruff of the neck and really, really kind of diffuses it all, doesn't it? Right? He tells him to cool off. If this bickering continues, it could kind of bring the spider to its ruin. And that would be the ultimate betrayal, right, to the spider if that was to happen. And you see that he's able to kind of provide a perspective that even Shalnark wasn't really thinking of, right? And Shalnark's right. He admits it. Yeah, he's like, yeah, you're right. That's true. I thought immediately that maybe it's, the fortune's coming true, but no. The complete destruction of the spider is the worst case scenario. It truly is, right? So I really like how Franklin handled that situation, right? He doesn't really pick a side or anything, right? It's all kind of putting all of these emotions aside and looking at it logically, right? The best case scenario and how it can play out, right? Let him go, let Paku take the kids. If indeed, there is something, sketchy, then they'll deal with it, right? They'll of course kill the ones that are being controlled and they'll rebuild the spider. But before I sign off, I kind of want to go back to residual Nen, the idea of this type of Nen being really quite fearsome, right? Even more so, apparently. So yeah, this is something I speculated about back in the Uvogin fight, or after Uvogin's death, rather. And there I speculated about the possibility of Nen lingering a bit, right? Even after death, right? To a point that people could come across someone's Nen even if they are dead, right? Maybe members of the troop could sense Uvogin's not death, his Nen, right? And for that reason maybe come across his dead body, right? Something along those lines. But ultimately, yeah, I got my answer. Indeed, there is such a thing as residual Nen, right? So let's kind of speculate a bit. Now, is this simply a case of, okay, it's not something you can control at all, This is just, okay, it's all based on just how intense these emotions are. But I do think there is an interesting opening here, interesting possibility here of potentially controlling or incorporating residual Nen, as in someone actually working that into, restrictions or conditions, stipulations, even after their death. So yeah, at this point, I'm really quite fascinated by this idea of residual Nen after death, right? I've seen some things, I've heard of some things already in this anime. So I'm really quite excited to have this come into play at some point, because I'm sure it is going to come into play at some point. The setup is there. The mechanics have been set up now, right? Yeah. But yeah, folks, I think that should do it for this one. So yeah, I've got to say once again, it's a satisfying conclusion, for me at least, right? It feels like a fitting end. It does. Right? I didn't feel that it had to be a bombastic ending. I think it was clear as well that it's not about to be that type of ending anyways, right? For a few episodes now, I think. But yeah, I think this is really quite the fitting ending, right? Really quite a somber ending. And it makes it all about the things that are clearly the most important, right? But yeah, that's the end of this one, folks. It's an incredible arc. It's, again, set the bar so high. This is the one to beat at this point. It's my favorite, of course, that's a given at this point, right? But yeah, if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in early access or timer-based full length or full opacity, consider checking out the Patreon page. And potentially supporting the channel. The links are in the description and the pinned comment. Also links to social media if that's your thing. There's also a new tier that's going to come into play at some point. And that's going to be all about more episodes of Hunter x Hunter. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for the next one. Until then, take it easy.